Welcome back, everyone. We are back here for episode 5 on Chosen Speaks True Salvation, and I am here with.
Zora Rice, nice to meet you.
Guys, we have had like a little weekend off, and it's been kind of crazy, but guys, I'm so happy that I had that little break because I was able to meditate on the word. I was able to pray. I went through a couple of things, but I'm all right now. And we're just here to talk about what she has gone through on campus and how God has delivered her, guys. How God has delivered her. So let's talk about that.
So like I said, hi everyone. My name is Zora, and I go to Grambling State University. Um, Honestly, my walk with God has been very interesting, I will say, because I never really understood what that meant until after graduating high school. And a lot of times for me, growing up, I had a lot of family around me. Okay, my grandpa is a preacher. We go to church every Sunday. If we do nothing else on the weekend, we go to church. So I always knew of God, but I didn't really get to know him until I got to college. And I'll say my first experience when I realized that I needed to sit in silence and really call on him was when I was questioning myself a lot. I would have like a lot of self-doubt. When I graduated, I don't really know where it came from, but it was very frustrating for me trying to accomplish things when I didn't think I could do it. But I'm going to tell y'all right now, my favorite Bible verse, 2 Timothy 1:7. For the Lord does not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And after I heard that, everything really like clicked for me and it changed. And so when I came to Graham to come to school, my sister was already here, okay? And my first semester was really successful. I had a lot of faith. I was like, you know what? God, you've done enough for me now. You're going to keep going. And I was doing great. I was in new things. I was meeting all these new people. And then my second semester, I don't really know what happened. You know, I don't want to say I fell off, but I kind of lost the discipline that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that did create a major setback for me, you know? But I'm just grateful that I actually made it here, you guys, because I really didn't think I was going to get into college.
Wow, you guys, that's so powerful. You know, sometimes it takes a level of obedience that we have to walk through when we are walking on our journey with Christ. And sometimes we forget who has given us all these things. We forget what God has delivered us from. And when we go back and we look at the Bible, we look at all these great stories of these great men that were in prison, that went through situations where they felt like they lost all hope. But it shows that there is still hope on campus. That some people, when they get here, their journey's just beginning with Christ. And that's when you said that, I was like, okay, a lot of people's journey starts here. It starts here. It's like, I'm taking it serious now because it's like I'm more mature and I'm ready to just like, okay, I'm ready to sit with him. I'm ready to understand him. I'm ready to just like let him just have all of me. And then sometimes even as college students, we get within ourselves. We forget things. We forget.
Yeah, because I know for me personally, I think the push was that I wasn't at home anymore. And so it's not that I didn't have help from my parents, but being separated from them, you realize just how much stuff they do for you and just how many times you're asking them for things. So when you realize, oh, they can't just go say, oh, I didn't do my project, like I don't know what I'm going to do. And they just, when you were younger, you know, your mom, you tell her the night before, I didn't do my project, I have to go get a poster board. And they'll go get you a poster board, take you to the store, whatever. But then you get to college and it's like, all of those things that, you know, your parents used to keep up with for you, and all those things that you didn't realize that you're supposed to be doing regularly that they were always on you about, you get here and all of a sudden you realize how important they are. So with them being without my parents here to be like my main influence and my main support, I really had to sit there and ask myself, like, who was their support before they became my support?
Mm.
And I think when I went back to go really realize that, that's when I knew it was time for me to sit down with him.
Yes, I also will agree with a lot of things that you said that going back to looking at who was before them, that's
Yeah.
a big thing. You have to look at stuff like that. You have to pay attention to things like that, guys, because there was somebody that was looking over our parents before they became our parents.
Yeah.
And just like how there was someone looking over Jesus before, he became the Father. There was Jehovah. There was somebody that was looking over him. There was somebody that he had to continuously keep praying to, because we all look up to someone. You know, we have to understand that we have people that are calling us to be responsible. You have to walk into a level of responsibility as well. Because now, like you said, that you're a college student, you can't always just put all the weight on your parents. It's like, okay, I just want to put all the weight on my parents. I want them to tell me what to do. Now it's like, okay, spiritually wise, physically wise, when I'm at my job or when I'm doing certain things, it's like, okay, you need to have a schedule. You need to understand that it's important that you carry your own weight. And that's the thing, that's the glory of Christ, because he will hold you accountable. He will hold you
Yeah.
accountable. You must be independent. You must understand why it's so important that you know what your true mission is, not just within him, but in your daily life.
Yeah, because someone said you can't piggyback off somebody else's relationship with Christ. Like, you have to
Mm.
form your own. And I was sitting there, I was thinking, I was like, what do they mean by that? And then I was listening to my mom one day, and she was telling me, she was like, yeah, my family, they were prayer warriors. And I'm like, prayer warriors? Warriors are people who, like, literally go to war.
Mhm.
And then she was telling me how, during spiritual warfare and how whenever someone's going through a hard time, you have those people in the family who would really, like, get on their knees and pray any time of day.
Mhm.
And they would pray over everybody for however long regularly. And she was saying how a lot of the blessings that we have, a lot of the things I've accomplished were really like those prayers and those blessings coming into fruition. And so when she told me that, I was like, well, if that's the investment other people have already put in, then imagine what it is I'm supposed to do with that, Because even if I never asked for my own blessings, they've asked for so many on my behalf. Everything they've asked for on my behalf is, I want to say, it's kind of like my duty to accomplish it. So when I realized that, I was like, okay, so the responsibility of my relationship with God isn't just about me. It's not just, oh, I'm having a bad day. It's like there are other people who actually like rely on you to like be obedient, which is actually crazy to me, but I think it's a
Yeah.
beautiful cycle we live in.
Yeah, my grandfather said, when you could walk by yourself, right? You could walk by yourself, but remember this, that throughout everything, everybody had to learn from someone, right? And within that, it's a partnership. So everything that you do in this world, even when you go to work, when you're just doing normal, traditional things at home, it's a partnership. Somebody had to teach them how to teach you.
Yes, that's actually like the basis of the mentorship program I want to start.
Mm.
It's find a mentor, be a mentor, make a mentor. So it's basically that whole concept where it's like you have somebody who teaches you, and then you learn from them, and then you teach it to somebody else. But not only are you supposed to teach it to that person, you have to teach them how to teach it to somebody after them. So by the time you get done, the third person in line becomes the first person.
Right.
And it's like I'm still working on the idea, so. But
It's very, man, like, wow, the Holy Spirit is speaking right now. And, what it's telling me is it's reminding me of, Jesus and his apostles and how he had to keep, he gave them everything they needed so that they could go out and preach that word. And they had to preach to people so that other people could lay hands on other people. See, it's a process. It's a process. And sometimes when you're on that process, it's like, man, am I going to remember? Am I going to be right? when I'm going through this mentoring? What do I learn when I get through here? Am I really, is God going to, everything that he gives me, right? Is it really going to stick? And when I think about the apostles and I think about John or I think about James, I say to myself, wow, like how much pressure that had to be.
Oh, with anytime that I read the Bible and I realize that these people dedicated their entire lives to this one thing, I'm like, so what is it that I'm doing? Because for me, I don't even do the same thing consistently every day. I can't think of one thing that I do every single day at the same time for the same amount of time, no matter what, like clockwork. My schedule, like for example, when you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, all that stuff, that didn't happen at the exact same time every single day for the same amount of time every single day. You know, routine switches up depending on what day it is, things like that. And to know that there are people who really dedicated their entire lives to just preaching the word of God. And, you know, I was wondering, because how is it that you managed to do that if you know that you had a whole other life before you decided to become an apostle, right? But then I realized, like, even when you're going through sin or there's something that you have a habit of doing that you know you want to stop doing, you have to actually spend time with God to allow him to change your heart. But if you stop spending time with him, the changes won't always be there. You know, it's supposed to be fresh every day. And I think that I finally understood the importance of why it is so important to really like sit and talk with him every day. And I know for me, I don't tend to have the discipline to do it. And I can see the difference from just doing it for a week, 2 weeks, you know, to not doing it for 4 days. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's that inner work. It's that inner work that God has to do within you. Because a lot of people say, okay, they overthink it. When they think about Jesus, they sit there and they be like, okay, well, how am I supposed to talk to Jesus? Or how do I know his voice? Or how do I know that I'm doing the correct work? Because I thought it's two separate things, that when I deal with Jesus, I'm working with Jesus, and then he's working on something totally different than what I'm working on with myself. You have to learn how to die to certain things within yourself. You have to die to certain impulsiveness. Like you're people are impulsive. Sometimes people are naturally impulsive. Sometimes people are just naturally sinful. And some people thought that we would be doomed to sin, right? With all the things that God has delivered us from, some people still feel that way. And within that situation, you have to come to that term and understanding that when you're dealing with the Lord can deliver you from something, but you have to take that personal work. You have to sit there. You have to sit within him. You have to sometimes isolate yourself from people. Sometimes you have to cut people off. What I'm learning is sometimes you just have to let people go, whether they're good or they're bad. Because sometimes their influence can be good for others, but their influence might not always be good for you.
I actually have had that happen to me where I was like, okay, honestly, it's not that I have a problem with the person per se, that something happened, we had a falling out, but I was like, when I think about the type of person I want to be and the type of people I want to be around, they don't really fit into that scope. And it's nothing personal against them. It's not meant to be an attack. It's just we're different. And I had a whole life before I met you, which means that if we stop associating, I will still have a whole life after you, and everybody's going to be A-okay.
Yes.
That right there is definitely a lesson that I had to learn the hard way a couple of times. It is okay to outgrow things, places, people. It's okay to go separate ways. If they're really meant to be back in your life long term, they can come back. You never know.
Yeah.
You really never know. I mean, it happens in Hallmark movies all the time, but those are movies. Real life, it's a little different. But
you know, people say it's a separation or a division. And I used to think it was always a division. Even now, I used to think it was a division or a separation, or just people feeling some type of way about you, and people controlling other people. But no, it's more about when you get to a certain level in your life, you're going to feel like you're no longer supposed to be around these people. And if you live by scripture and you live by everything of the Holy Spirit and you start paying attention to things, the Lord is going to tell you who's around you that's good enough to speak to you, or good enough to fill you up, or good enough to give you counsel. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I used to think, Amani, you're the problem. That's what everybody say. You're the problem. You're the problem. You evaluate the whole situation, and then people just disappear. People just go, and then I get to that point where I just be like, okay, no, pray on it, understand that it's not always you, it's just the situation at hand. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay for God to pull you away from people. Doesn't mean that it always means you're a bad person. Because if it happens multiple times, it happens. But what you have to realize is the pull, right? It happens. You'll be taken away. But what you'll learn is everything is a life lesson. And then
Yeah.
when you go read the stories in the Bible, you'll realize that somebody went through this multiple times. That there's a repetition to this. Just like
Yeah.
how he repeats the same scripture so that he can like give you
Yeah.
that formula so you can understand that this is
Yeah.
serious. That's how it is. Your life is serious to me, my son. I want you to understand. I want these people to treat you right. I want these people to treat you right, my daughter. But if these people are not treating you right, or maybe these people are just not who I want you to be with in this season,
Yeah.
then I just need you to just back away. Sometimes I had to learn how to, and I've been listening and I've been hearing this for so long, let it go. And that hurts. It hurts. But what I learned is when I let something go, I let it go ultimately. I'm not going back to it. I want to show God that I can die to certain things. That if this is what your will is, then I want it to be complete. And if you bring somebody back in my life, then let it be the will of you, not the will of me. Because I forced a lot of things. I did. And then after a while, I was like, no. If he wants it to happen, it'll happen.
See, and as far as like outgrowing people and knowing that it's time for you to pull back from certain people, I tend to say, well, like, that would be so rude of me because they didn't do anything, like, what do I know to be just telling people, like, we don't make great friends anymore. But then after I have the conversation with myself and I try to talk myself out of it and say, you know what, no, I don't need to do that. Every time that I interact with that person after that, it's like I can't even have a normal interaction anymore. Anytime that it's time for me to stop spending time in places or like certain habits or like, how, let's say you have some, like your favorite toy or whatever, when you outgrow it, by the time that you've actually taken the time to assess that, every time you go back to it, it's like we can go. It's time to go. We can cut the conversation short. And anytime, what I've noticed especially, I know when it's not me because it's a constant idea in my head. And a lot of times I'm against it. That's how I know that it's probably something I need to listen to because I don't ever want to listen to it the first time or the second time or the third, fourth, or fifth time. So I've been trying to listen to that more regularly. And it actually happened to me last week, actually. I had to make a really big decision last week because that voice in my head was letting me know this is not for you anymore.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it happens a lot. It happens a lot. I kind of feel like it happens a lot. But what I also realized is you have to walk in a level of humility. And that's where I suffer at. Walking in that level of humility. And, I don't have a problem with letting things be the way it's going to be. But it's just impact. After a while, somebody's very powerful. You know they're good people. You know that they're a very powerful person in your life, but sometimes you have to set certain things aside because it's not about us. It's not about even this conversation. It's about Jesus. It's about what he's going to do for us because where everybody else might fail, he finds success.
That's true.
And he finds greatness in all of us. He finds the beauty within all of us. And when the Lord kind of like touches me now, I just be like, Jesus, I'm just ready to let it go. I'm just ready to just stop going through the same cycle. But the thing is, the Lord is probably still wondering in his mind, why do you continue on to do it? And and then, it gets to that point where it's just like, it's not on purpose, Jesus. It's that I trust too much. And when you realize how you go look at the story and you look at how Judas did Jesus, right? Judas sat there. He was given the bread and he said, somebody is going to betray me. And Jesus knew that you were going to betray him. And it's a lot of God telling me and showing me red flags ahead of time. And then I see it, but I just don't choose to say anything. Because it's like when I do, people don't respect what I say. And within that, it's just like, okay, if I keep repeating myself and I become annoying, Lord, Lord, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, because Jesus, if you have to say it more than twice, then it becomes a problem. Sometimes we sit in our own bad situations.
You know what's crazy? My friends were literally just getting on to me about this, and I'm not gonna go into too many details, but me and an associate are having a ongoing problem currently, and I was like, I don't want to say anything because that's gonna be rude, and you know, we already discussed it, and we had come to an agreement that we were going to like respect each other's boundaries about this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And then yesterday, or was it this morning, somebody said a boundary is not something they do. A boundary is you letting them know that you're going to behave in this manner, you're going to do this thing or not do this thing because of their behavior. So if somebody is disrespecting you constantly, the boundary would be you letting them know next time my reaction is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And a boundary requires them to do nothing. And I was like, that's something I really could have used like 4 months ago, because a lot of times for me, I let things fester because I'm like, okay, honestly, clearly we already had this conversation, which means you don't care. So if I keep bringing it up to you, one of two things is going to happen. I'm going to get annoyed because you're acting like you hear me and you don't. Or I'm going to say something that I mean in the moment that I know I shouldn't have said. And I don't like making enemies when I'm mad just because I was trying to be irrational and mean. And so I end up being nice. And honestly, you guys, nice is not something we should aim for. We should aim to be kind, okay? Kindness is when you volunteer your time, you go out of your way, you know. But nice is when you give people the space and the time to run you over, go past, and do things that honestly you shouldn't be putting up with anyway. And I have that really bad habit.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like going to the deliverance conversation, and like, you know, talking about deliverance, I feel like something that God has delivered me from is He's delivered me from always wanting to know that everything's going to be okay. That's what He's delivered me from. It's not an issue. I've told my stepmother about multiple situations that I've in, and sometimes I got into that point where I had to tell my stepmother about when somebody does something real crazy, and then I would have to like write it down, so when people go back and say that I did this, that, and the other, I would have to go and tell her these things first before this escalates out of control. It gets so bad that you have to like I have to call my stepmother and my grandmother and be like, stepmama, this happened, like, what am I supposed to do? You know you're supposed to leave. You know better. You know better, but it's just like you trying so hard. You allowing people to break your boundaries so you can make them happy. When you really feel good about having somebody around, just like with situations with my dad, or even situations with certain brothers and sisters within my family, I continuously say stuff, and I speak it, and I say it so many times. And it's just like I'm saying stuff. Then they compare me to other people, or they go and repeat the same situation. And then they say, oh, but they didn't do it. They didn't listen to me. So why should I listen to you? No, we're different people. See, that's the thing. If you've told me that this person has done these things, right, and you feel like they're being impulsive, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be. You have to have a verbal. You have to have a verbal conversation. That's why it's so important to communicate one-on-one. Because if you don't communicate one-on-one, you think about how many situations in the Bible, right, where God had to talk to Moses. But there were a lot of situations where Moses wouldn't have completely knew, because it's a step-by-step process. What I've learned with dealing with Jesus is that He's going to tell you what could happen or what's going to happen. And
he's never going to give you every single step, because you look at it and be like,
yeah, but that's the glory of what Jehovah did for Moses, because Moses was given every step. But at the end of the day, he still struck the rock. He still did what he wanted to do. And that's why, you know, you're going to have people in your life where they're just going to continue on striking the rock because they're in a situation that they do not like. Some people are unhappy with their situation. Some people are not glad with the situation that they're in. Some people just are hurt and going through things. And I was hurt for a very long time. I'm still going through stuff right now. I'm just living life. And people, when I talk to other people about the situation, and I tell them fully what's going on, not just half.
Yeah.
Because people hear another side, and then they don't want to hear your side. They say, you've been going through this situation like so many times. And they say, but we only hear this half, but we don't hear the other half. But you know, the Lord tells you what's truly going on, even though that person doesn't really know what's really going on themselves. So it's just like when you know the truth and you just sitting back and you just like, when you know the truth, that's the greatest thing that God could have ever gave me. Like
Yeah.
that closure of knowing that, hey, bro, it's okay. Just like with my second situation, it's okay. Justice will be served. It doesn't matter what you say. I record everything. Jesus records everything. I saw what you did. You were in the right. You did everything I asked you to do. Don't go getting upset. They're adding fire to the flame. Leave them alone. That's what people do. They gaslight. You have to let them. You have to let them just say what they gonna say.
And see, that right there is exactly why I try not to say just everything. Because I know when I'm mad, I start saying things that I know I mean in the moment. But if I looked up and was seeing the video of me 3 years from now, I'd be like, why did you say that? So I try to, I have a rule, okay? Everything I process for 3 days, all right? Jesus was in the grave. He rose on the third day, right? By the third day, I've made a decision, okay? Usually by the beginning of the third day, too. Not like it's been a whole 72 hours and some change. By the time 72 hours is up, I've made a decision. And I've noticed that even when it comes to, like, me trusting God, because that was my biggest thing. I didn't know how to trust him because growing up, right, my mom has always taken such good care of us. You know, my mom has always been the most stable person in my life. And she's taught me how to do so much on my own that whenever someone tells me to trust them to do something, I'm like, but honestly, like, I could still do it. It's not like it's going to be a big deal. And I'm not hyper independent either. So trying to trust God when you know you can't see him, when you know you can't sit here and have a tangible conversation.
Yeah, you got to trust his time, and you got to trust his work. You got to trust his process, because a lot of that stuff is just the last minute. It's like I was going through a situation where I was in a bad situation. Last minute, all of a sudden, everything I was saying was making sense. Could have made or break my education. And I've been in this situation once already, and I was going through it a second time, and it was just like the Lord was just speaking through me. And you know, when you know you have the Lord and you know you have that conviction, nobody can take that away from you. No matter how inferior they might think you are, no matter what kind of little small bad decisions you've made, as long as God knows your nature. See, you know, it's so beautiful because, you know, Jesus knew Judas's nature. The Father knew Judas's nature. He knew John's nature. He knew how beautiful and good he was. He knew how amazing he was and how much he just cared. Whether it was John the Baptist or one of his followers, he knew how beautiful his heart was. And that's what it's about. It's about the heart posture. And see,
I tell people that all the time because two people could do the same action, say the same thing, go to the same places, but their reasoning for doing it changes the entire situation, the entire thing. Because, like, I've had my friends come to me and they're mad about something, okay? It has nothing to do with them, but they're, like, mad at me on my behalf, right? And she's yelling. But I know that she knows me well enough to know that she cares and she doesn't want to see me doing things that are below my potential, right? I've had other friends that I thought were friends come to me and they want to stage an intervention. They want to talk to me and tell me all these things. And I'm listening, right? And I'm apologizing for stuff that's never happened, okay? I'm very non-confrontational. Like, if you start yelling at me, I start looking at you crazy because I don't know what you want me to do with that, you know? 2 days later, and I'm, like, sitting with myself, and I went, none of that ever happened. You know, we've got names, dates, we've got witness accounts, all of these things. And I'm sitting here and I said,
none of it happened.
60% of that story
wasn't
was false.
true. It wasn't true. None of it's true.
And I'm sitting here and I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
the people telling me about myself weren't even there.
It's
So,
like they just do it. They
so
just
then I
do
was
it.
like, okay, that's crazy. But as I started to get to know God, and one thing I will say, I think is the biggest compliment I've ever received. Someone told me that I have a zest for life,
Mm.
and I really didn't understand why people were always telling me they feel like I was like a light when I walk in a room and all these things,
Mm.
until she told me that, and I realized I was like, okay, so if I'm taking up space in a room and I haven't done anything yet,
Mm.
then it would make sense why when I'm not there, I'm still there after I'm gone. You
Yes.
know?
Yes, it's because you left something. You left something that because okay, everybody, no matter if a person hates you or no matter if people are gossiping behind you, and I deal with that. I deal with people gossiping about me. So, one thing that I
That means you're
learned,
doing something right.
yeah, it's every time. But you know, when I was in that bad situation that second time, I wonder. I thought about something, and I was sitting in there, and I was just thinking to myself. I said, Jesus, how can I make things right? I apologized. And then what I did was I kept a distance. I gave space.
Yeah.
You need to respect God's process because you do not want to instigate something that you are wrongly accused of. That's the worst thing, becoming your own worst enemy. So many people in this world, and I used to do it all the time. I used to get so frustrated. I used to be like, man, what did I do? But sometimes you got to get to that point where it's just like, it ain't really that you did anything, bro. It's just that people grow.
And you know what's crazy? I have actually had people ask me, "Oh, what did I do?" And in all seriousness, you didn't do anything. We kind of just don't get along, and I think it's because when people do meet me, I'm so happy, I'm so that it throws people off when they realize like, oh, she has the opposite part of her personality, you know.
Yeah.
But I will say, God is good though because He has taught me, He has shown me a lot about myself that's made me be more appreciative of the way He created me and the way He made me. So I've learned to enjoy things like every day that I wake up, I'm just grateful that when I drive my car and stuff, and I look out the window and I'm like, these trees have been here and they're so beautiful, and it's every springtime when all the flowers come back and the leaves turn, that we get to see such a beautiful landscape when we drive by, you know?
You know, I've had so many times where my situations have almost taken my life. And I think to myself, I say, okay, I think about it. I say, man, I was in a bad situation once. I was in a bad situation twice. Now here we are again. And I had conversations about this situation. So this is what I'm going to do. The only way to make the situation better is to be who I am and work on myself, grow, distance myself from these people, do it again. I have to do it again. It's a lot of distancing, it's a lot of giving space, not just for them, but for you as well, for your
Yeah.
safety. Because, you know, people, you won't do nothing to them, but they'll do something to you, even though
Yeah.
they're hurt. And I had to learn that it's better off nothing being said than saying anything at all. I learned I play by this rule. I don't play by your rules. I play by God's rules. If the case comes down to it, that you do say something or you do come to me with the same situation over again, later on, I'm just gonna make you walk away because you just need to leave. Like you said, you like they told you to let it go. I need to let it
Yeah.
go. We all need to let it go. Let's stop talking about it as a whole. So let's just maneuver ourselves away from each other. That's what's best. It's best to just scatter. And I also wanted to ask you, we didn't get on that big topic, but what did God deliver you from? What is something that's very big?
So for me, honestly, my biggest thing really was self-doubt. Um, my lack of belief in myself really hindered a lot of the progress I should have made over the last 2 to 3 years. So I'll say that I've gotten to the point now where the only reason I'll say I can't do something is if I decide I just don't want to. So the confidence that I have that I'll be able to accomplish my goals has risen really high. And as far as my standards for myself, every day I find something new to add to them. So.
Yeah, self-doubt. You always got to have that confidence because God inbuilt, he puts that in us. And
Power, love,
you
and a
know,
sound mind.
I usually lose confidence because I usually be looking for confidence. Like, have you ever had this thing where you just always look for confidence within other people? I'm just like, God, sometimes I look for the validation of other people and I don't know how to stop. But then I get to that point where I just be like, God, Is it really just the confidence, or is it something else that I'm seeking? Because usually I look at other people and then I compare myself, but that's how you defeat yourself. Like when
Yeah.
you compare to yourself to other people's lives, that's how things get bad, you know.
And I think for me, I learned to take, because, okay, sometimes you can't focus on the habit you're trying to break. You have to focus on what habit God's trying to get you to create. So what I did was, if I was going to compare myself to something, I was going to learn from it. Okay? So whether it be a picture, a hairstyle, a habit, an activity, I was going to learn something from that person. So my new thing is collecting hobbies now. So we're
Yeah,
gonna
and that's what I need
we'll
to.
see how it goes.
And this show is a hobby, and I'm creating a group called. Well, I ain't gonna tell nobody yet because I don't want nobody to steal the idea. I know how it be, but I will say this: it's been amazing having you. And you
Oh,
know
thank
what?
you.
Actually, from everything that we've learned with your testimony, with what God has delivered you from, with the situations and the issues, we have the same common issues, and we've been through the same situations. I'm gonna call this. I'm gonna call this podcast, this episode, "You Live and You Learn." That will be great.
Yeah.
You live and you learn. You
'Cause-
got to, sometimes you
yeah.
go through the same situation over and over and over again. But you
Yeah.
live and you learn. You learn. You got to
But you
keep,
know,
keep going.
my biggest goal in life is to always be learning something. I've decided that no matter what I do, if I'm learning something, then I'm doing all right. I'm being successful. If I learned something, that's success for me.
Right.
Doesn't matter how big it is, doesn't matter how small it is, you never know when you're gonna need it, never know who's gonna want to hear it from you. I was telling my friend something earlier today, and she was like, "Where did you learn that?" I don't know.
Yeah.
But
But you live and you learn,
thanks
guys.
for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been
Yes,
nice.
it's been so amazing having her. It's so powerful. She's such a powerful young lady. It's so amazing to hear her journey. And this is episode 5, guys. Hopefully, we'll shoot episode 6 next week, and that'll be the last episode of this semester. If anybody wants to be part of that episode, please let me know. Or I think my co-star is talking to people to see if they want to be in the last episode. But what I believe is that everybody has a light. Everybody has a powerful spirit. Everybody has a word, and everybody has a testimony. And I just want everybody to be heard. This is what this show is about. It's not about greed, money, or anything. It's about everybody coming together and speaking their piece. So if you want to be on the show, let me know. But this has been Chosen Speaks True Salvation, episode 5.